Halacha Beis is on page Chav Tesam Aleph, right there. Okay? Do you guys have the pictures? You know the pictures? Yeah, let me give you the pictures. I have all the pictures in my Gemara. Just make sure the right page. You have all of them, right? The page before that. No, we're still on the flip side of this. No, you dial it. Still you dial it. Okay? We'll get on to Tesvav in a few minutes. Okay, Arishu Yetim Na Madrega. You have an oris which is a row of 5 vines, which are trellised over a brick wall, and they are on a higher level than the field. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Omer Imo made Boratavoter Skulo. If when you stand on the ground, you can reach up to the vines, which are up on a step, and harvest them, then it's considered that the vines are as if they're on the same level as the field itself, and it asks 4 amos into the field. And if not, if you cannot reach from the land, from the ground level up to the vines which are on the step and harvest them, so then ein oser kenegda, so then the vines only answer up to on the step itself, but not down below on the ground. And you have a picture of that, I believe. Oh, the picture's on a slant. No, actually, the picture's not a slant. Picture Kuf base. Kuf Chaf, excuse me. See picture Kuf Chaf? There you have the oris on the step. They're right there at the bottom. Bottom right. Okay, Kuf Chaf. Okay, so there, if you can stand on the ground level and reach up to the oris and harvest it, then again the oris aser, it's as if it's on the same level, and it asers 4 amos into the field. If you can't stand below and reach the vines, so then it doesn't aser in the field itself.
It doesn't take into account the height of the person, short.
No, it doesn't take into account the height. Average height, obviously, right? It's a din d'Rabbanan, clearly the Gemara will say. It can't be the right, because such a thing is too arbitrary. Same thing is true if you plant one on the ground and one vine on the ground and one vine on the step. If between the step and the ground there's 10 tefachim, in that case, then the ones on the ground and one on the step don't join together. If there isn't 10 tefachim between the two, then they do join together. Rabbi Shimon, now, as I mentioned, the beginning of the Mishnah is the Rabbanan, because when it's almost on the same level, so then it looks like it's on the same level, so that's a Marasayan issue. So once we mention Marasayan issues, we're going to mention a couple of Marasayan issues from the rest of Shas. Rabbi Shimon bar Nachman and Rabbi Yonasan b'Shem Rabbi Elazar said, "Hagomim es karmo pachos mitefach." If you cut down your vines to the point where the vines are less than a tefach high, they have a stump of less than a tefach, chayav barla. It's as if you replanted them when they grow again, and therefore they're chayav and orla for the first 3 years of their growth. Even though mikra adin, they're not considered to be replanted, nonetheless, Marasayan, it looks like they're replanted. Similarly, now here's a typo according to the Gra. Divrei Chachamim, there's words missing. It should say Divrei Chachamim Koyre Chachamim Ad Sheyogum Imar. The Chachamim say as long as there's some stump left, you don't have to do orla again. But once you make the stump flush with the ground, again, even though midaraisa, it's not a new planting. But here we say Marasayan requires you to observe orla of the 3 years. You don't have the place, Mr. Zucker, on Chavtes and Aleph. How many lines to the bottom?
Good.
You got it?
No.
3 lines below the start of the Gemara.
3 lines below the where the Gemara starts. Okay. Similarly, another Marasayan halach. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman said b'Shem Rabbi Yonasan b'Shem Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Hosa krimi na lek b'shulchan. If you make a pile, out of leket shicha or peah. In other words, an ani, a poor person, gathered leket shicha and peah, which are normally exempt from trumas u'maisrus, right? But if you made a pile of them, so it looks like you harvested them, so then chay b'truma g'dolah b'nei marasayin. You have to give truma again because of marasayin, because it looks like you made an actual harvest.
They know he's a man.
But and he also have fields, so he looks like he had a field and he made a harvest. Rashua bar Nachman, b'shem Rabbi Yona's son, Rabbi Lezer Yaakov Beis Shammai said another marasayin. Now this is named Beis Shammai. Hameis mitame arba amos reshus harabim. A mace is mitame. Anybody comes in is 4 amos in reshus harabim. Even though it's not under an overhang, there's no ohel. Nonetheless, he's mitame 4 amos in all directions. Now the reason why he brings on the bottom is in order because otherwise the levaya people might jostle the mace, right? They might jostle the people who are carrying. You know, they're not all orderly like we have here in America. If you go to levaya in Eretz Yisrael, they're extremely, extremely rowdy, right? So therefore, people might start jostling the mace and raising all sorts of bizoyin on mace. So therefore, we say midrabanan, the entire area of 4 amos around the mace is metame to try and keep people away from the mace. Mivnei kvodo, because of the honor of the mace. Rabbi Mona Amar, Mona said, Hoda achraisa b'shum Beis Shammai. This last one is named Beis Shammai. Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Bun Amar, Kulum b'shum Beis Shammai. They're all Beis Shammai's opinion. Beis Hillel doesn't agree necessarily with any of these halachas, which are marasayin halachas. Rabbi Yoino, Rabbi Yoino said, Ofado ditninon. Also, our case over here in our Mishnah is Mivnei marasayin, is also the Rabbanan case. The low cane, if not, Ma ben Omei Bor to Ma ben Omei Mantreg. We mentioned this case, Mr. Zuger. Let me show him the picture. In this case, where the vines are standing on a step, and here you have ground. So we said that if you could stand on the ground and harvest the vines aser. So we're saying that it was a marasayin halacha. It's not halacha which has to do with a primary, daraisa din, but rather it's because it looks to people as if it's the same. Now it says Yerushalmi nice lumbus. By the way, I have all the tapes from last week there. Okay.
What are the conditions where he can do it where he lives very far from people?
Never helps. When Chazal made it takana because of marasayin, it makes no difference whether people see or not. In other words, the reason the takana was because of what it looks like. But then we no longer care what people actually see and do not see. So it doesn't help. Okay? Sorry. No answer there. Okay. Now it says Yerushalmi, very interesting lom. This is really cool. It says Yerushalmi, Givoa. It says that the step is higher than the ground. Magvar, what's higher than the ground? Shura, the row of vines, or do I say that Gavor Madrega, the step itself, is higher? It's too fast for you, huh? All right. Can you turn that a little lower, just one notch lower, if you can reach it.
Yeah.
Thank you. No. Oh, it does?
It's the opposite of the neighborhood.
Oh. 2 more. No, one more. Yeah, that's slow.
That's what you want, right?
No, he wanted medium.
Medium done. Sedate. All right. Now with the Yerushalmi, what? The middle path, right? What the Yerushalmi is clearing is as follows. The Yerushalmi is clearing when we're talking about the step being higher than the ground. Are we talking about the step being higher, or are we talking about the row of trees itself being higher? What's the difference, you might ask? So it says we're in tema gavar shura. If you're going to say that the row of trees is higher, in shofeya hamadrega, when you have a step which is on an angle, then I would say kilamaton, that it's like down below. Meaning, this is a really cool case. If you say like this, picture number Kuf Chaf Aleph. A picture, Kuf Chaf Aleph is actually what picture already said. No, I'll say this is our case. Okay, Kuf Aleph. If you're going to say that you look at, I still like dealing with Kuf Chaf Beis better. I like Kuf Chaf Beis. It's easy to deal with. Let's look at Kuf Chaf Beis. If you say that we look at the height of the row of trees, so when you have a step which is on an incline, you see the grade here is on an incline. So even when you look at the row of trees must be 10 tefachim off the ground in order to be separate from the ground. Okay? The row of trees, if you had a row of trees which is more than 10 tefachim away from the one on the ground, such as Kuf Chaf Aleph, going back to that picture, they wouldn't be connected. If you had a row of trees which is more than 10 tefachim off the ground, then it wouldn't answer the field. That's picture Kuf Chaf Beis. But if you look at the row and say the row is higher than the field. But what if you look at the step? Then even if the step itself is only 10 tefachim, anything planted on the step is considered to be distinct from the field. It's an amazing thing. If you look at the row of trees, so you say the row of trees itself must be physically 10 tefachim higher than the field. But if you look at the step, as long as the step in its entire composition is more than 10 tefachim higher than the ground, then anywhere on the step is considered to be separate from the ground. Even at the bottom of the step, right. That's what the Yerushalmi is saying. What are we looking at? Do we looking at the row of trees or looking at the step itself? It's a cool thing, right? It's strange. Oh, so now we're learning, essentially we're learning is halachos to tell him mislakin. Tell him mislakin means when we have a wall which is not a straight wall, but a slope. What's the status of the side of the slope? That's really what our issue is. Okay, that's going to be a tough issue. The Yerushalmi is going to discuss it in some detail now. Okay? We got the issue? Again, in Tamar Givoa Shura, if you're going to say that we look at the height of the row of vines itself, Shofei HaMadrega, where you have a slope, then it's kilomaton. Sure, it says with a mem, but it should be kilomaton. It's as if the trees are on the ground. It does you no good. It answers the field. Itema Givoa Madrega. If you're going to say we look at the height of the step itself, not the row of trees, then Shofea, and here it's a little bit messed up also, Shofea HaMadrega kilomalon. Then the slope of the slope of the step is like it's higher. The entire slope is considered to be above and beyond the field, even when it's a mashu off the ground at the bottom of the slope.
Now, does it make a difference that it's a slope?
That's okay. Yes, the Yerushalmi is going to discuss it. Yes, it's critical that it's a slant. Okay. Says the Gemara, wait a minute, Vatani, didn't we learn in the Brisa? Shtei shurus b'madrega. It talks about a case in the Brisa later on. We haven't seen this yet. Well, we're not going to see it anywhere else. This is Brisa. It's not a Mishnah. Does the Brisa say when you have two rows on the step itself? Islach lemeimar gevoa shura v'lo gevoa madrega. If you yeah, look at Kuf Chaf Dalet. Kuf Chaf Dalet. Is that last on the same page? No, that's Kuf Chaf Beis. Who has the new page? Yeah, you're on that page, right? Yeah. Okay. How many people have that page? Are you the only one that doesn't have it? Okay, so looking together. Okay, so in that case of Kuf Chaf Dalet, so the Brisa says if there are 10 tvachim between the two rows of trees, one of two and one of three, planted on the slant, they're not mitzaref together. So it says the Yerushalmi, this is a right that we look at the height of the trees themselves, not the slope. Because if you look at the entire slope as being a surface unto itself, so then you shouldn't have any, that should nothing to do with distance between the trees. Rather, everything on the slope should be considered connected, or not connected as the case may be, but it shouldn't have anything to do with the distance between the trees, but rather the slope itself. That's what Gemara says. So from this you derive it has to do with the height of the rows, not the height of the slope. Now, the Yerushalmi, although that's what the Yerushalmi tries to infer the Raisa, the Yerushalmi immediately reneges on that proof. Amar Ramona said, "Kol oson asara tvachish madrega asu osam kima mokem bifnei atzmo." All the 10 tvachim on the step are considered to be their own place. In other words, not like we just said. Even the lowest tefach off the ground is considered to be a separate place. Now here, since it's Yerushalmi, let's play a little bit of a game. If you see 3 lines later, wait, just one second. If you see 3 lines, this is my own chiddush about to tell you, a change in gears on the Yerushalmi. Haven't done this in a while, it's fun, I like doing this. You see later, 2 or 3 lines later, bring down Rav Chisda. Everybody see Rav Chisda a couple lines later? So I think Rav Chisda's statement should be up here. The statement of Rav Chisda has 5 words. Rav Chisda Amar b'moded lachsan, and the Pnei Moshe is supposed to be b'morad luchsan, and the morad luchsan means on an angle. And Rav Chisda is emphasizing that would just say that these 10 tvachim are placed unto themselves from the bottom of the slant to the top of the slant is specifically on a slant, on an angle, not where we have a straight wall. We'll come to the concept of a straight wall in a couple of minutes. Okay, he wants to emphasize this only on a slant, not on a straight wall.
How critical is that angle? In other words, 45
here in terms of Kilayim, usually the angle is 23 degrees. That's what we say by Shabbos. But here, which is the equivalent of 23, you know what, give me the blue book, please. Is that what the tilt of the earth is? 23 degrees? This is the blue book, this is called the blue book on Hilchos Eruvin. And I happen to have it here tonight. The blue book on Hilchos Eruvin. That's what it's not its official name, but that's what we call it. And the slant by Hilchos Eruvin is also 23 degrees. Let me just show you that, what it looks like. Here. This is the maximum slant the Lechi can have. 4 amos on the base by 10 tfachim height. So that's the slant which is still feasible, and that angle is 23 degrees. So that's the shiur of Telem Mislakit. Okay? But here it seems by Kilayim. So you might say that this is the angle of attack of the slope necessary here. But here by Kilayim, it doesn't seem that we're so meticulous in determining what the angle of the slope is. As long as there's a slope of any sort, it's considered to be distinct from the field.
23 degrees is the minimum angle. It has to be 23.
Right, but I don't think that there's a minimum here. In other words, by Eruvin, yes, in order to form a wall, you need a height of 20 degrees as a minimum wall. In other words, it has to be 23 degrees or more, right? But here, I don't know, it doesn't say that here at all, the parameters of the Gemara. So I don't think the Yerushalmi is requiring that by Kilayim.
It seems to like it's always one level.
Right. But the Yerushalmi is not, it could be, I don't know, the Yerushalmi is not specifying here, so my hunch is that it's not integral here, but I'm not 100% sure. No, if we're running Gemara, they have another picture book. The Perush Chaya and Eruvin. All right. I don't think he was there for Eruvin last time. Yeah. Don't worry, we're getting there soon. Okay, so now Eruvin is not good another couple weeks. No, Eruvin is a while because Shabbos is long with Sechta, another 8 months or so. Okay, says the Gemara. Now going further, Tamot, we learned over there, and now we're going to draw a distinction. Tamotzim, we learned over there by Shabbos, Hazorek, Arba Amos Bekoitzel, Lamala Me'asora Tvachim. Now here we're talking about straight wall. You throw in Rosh Hashanah 4 amos and it hits a wall. Lamala Me'asora Tvachim, if it hits the wall above Asora Tvachim, Gezorek Ba'avir, it's landing in a Makom P'tur, because it's in a place which exempts you from the Chiyuv, because you say anything above 10 Tvachim is a Makom P'tur. Rosh Hashanah only extends 10 tefachim up off the ground, so therefore it has to begin in Rosh Hashanah. When you're throwing Arba Amos Rosh Hashanah, has to begin in Rosh Hashanah and end in Rosh Hashanah. And here that's not the case because it's ending in a Makom P'tur, so therefore you're exempt. Okay. Lamata me'asor tefachim. If, however, if it hits the wall less than 10 tefachim, then it's below the 10 tefach mark on the wall. Then it's k'zorik bar, it's as if it's landing on the ground, and yechayiv and zorik arba amos Rosh Hashanah. Now let's skip the next 4 or 5 words, right? Because we already moved them earlier. Says Gemara, "Ve'ein soifel le'reid." Even if you throw it above 10 tefachim, isn't it going to fall down on the ground eventually? Says Gemara, no. Rabbi Chia b'shem Rabbi Yechanan said, "Tipoter explained say by case shoysa dvela shmeina." It's a thick, juicy date. Shivini toicha. It gets stuck onto the wall. So therefore, maybe eventually will come down, but not in the immediate future, and therefore it doesn't have a status. Therefore, it doesn't have a status of being thrown to Rosh Hashanah on the ground. Now, however, now comes the issue why we brought this down. Rabbi Chagai, boy, Kumi Rabbi Yossi, Chagai asked in front of Rabbi Yossi, Lei Sador Marta Shipur Madrego Kilomaton. Doesn't this tell us that the slope of the angle is like the bottom? Because here it landed on the wall, which is 10 tefachim high, well, within 10 tefachim, and we're saying it's if it's on the ground. So let's do by us also, say by us also. The slope is as if it's on the ground. What's between that wall, which is perpendicular, and our wall, which is on a slope? Just like over there on the perpendicular wall within 10 tefachim of the ground, it's like on the ground. So to by us on the slope, if it's within 10 tefachim of the ground, if it's on the slope, it should be considered on the ground. Right? It's a good question. So it says, so he said, no. Here's the difference. It's a very, very fine difference. Talmon zarin nanimina madrega. Over there, in which in Yerushalmi means by us. By us, the nourishment of the vines comes from the soil of the steppe. The steppe is an independent thing, and the vines derive their nourishment from the soil of steppe. Param hacha, but here by the wall, is there any permanence in the side of a wall? Do people normally stick stuff on the side of the wall? Vino fellas. Things are going to fall if they're there. In other words, there's no independent significance. There's no entity which we can call the side of a wall. Side of a wall is not a place where you stick things onto. But the slope is an independent entity.
Doesn't sharpen mean like a rub against?
Right, I'm sorry, I translated wrong. Derech Shafin means people are going to rub against the wall and the date is going to fall down. Forgot, sorry. People are going to rub against the wall and the date's going to fall down. So therefore it's not, the date has no permanent independent existence on the side of a wall. But here, the slope is a significant patch in and of itself. Okay? Says, what would be a proper parallel? Ilu Amar, were you to have said, Kshayosham Chor, that there was a hole in the wall there, or a ledge of some sort, Vihin Nana Min Chor, and the date would adhere to the wall by landing in that hole. Kishem Shazroy Nani Min Madrega, just like the seeds are benefiting or deriving their nourishment from the steppe, then it would be a proper comparison. In other words, the slope is a permanent place and an independent place, and therefore it can be looked at as a separate entity. The side of a wall is not a permanent place, and therefore cannot be regarded as an independent, significant entity. If you want to find an exception, I'll give you an exception. The exception is where there was a hole in the wall. Because there, when there's a hole in the wall, people are not going to rub against it and cause whatever's in the wall to fall out. In that case, if you threw it on the side of a wall, then one can make it, and it went into the hole in the wall, then one could make the case, and the Gemara does in Shabbos, that in that case it didn't fall into Rosh Hashanah. It doesn't help you very much, because I believe it's considered Rosh Hashanah then. But so you can chai because the other is or throwing it from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, but maybe not. I don't recall. I might be wrong about that. But be that as it may, the point is that the comparison has to be made to a place which has significance in and of itself, to a place that has significance in and of itself. But the side of a perpendicular wall has no significance, whereas the side of a slope has significance, and it is a place in and of itself. Okay? Is that relatively clear? The one where you threw the date, why does it be a dirt wall? Even a stone wall. It's stuck to the stones temporarily. We're not talking about we're drawing a parallel by the wall of Kilayim, which is the slope of the ground, to a wall by Shabbos, which is the side of a building. Okay, says Yerushalmi further along this vein. Shteginos, if you had two gardens, Zu Agavzu, one is
Something about this logic is you can't compare the two cases. And therefore by Kilayim, if you have a vine which is growing even at the first tefach above the ground on the slope, it doesn't answer the grain which is below the slope on the surface of the ground. Even one tefach away, which is the amazing kiddush here, because it's considered to be a vine which is connected to the slope with no relevance to the field. The slope, if you will, is a place in and of itself, even without a fence. what about this case we have where the second row is 10 on the way?
Oh, so there, since it's on the same slope, so therefore the slope would unite them. The only thing which would separate them is then the 10 fachim across. Oh, like this picture here. It's a slope between two parts of the field. Okay? Says more Shtegino now, continuing along this line, Shtegino Zu Agavzu, you have two gardens, one above the other. Hatachtona Suyakern, the bottom garden, is a vineyard. Yona Eno Suyakern, the top garden is not a vineyard. So Reas El Yona, you can plant the top garden, Achu Magil La'avir Asora, until you get within the 10 fachim of the airspace of the bottom garden. Now that means that if you're planting on the side of the slope here, Rabbi Isai, you plant on the side of the slope until you reach, let's say this is 10 fachim from the ground. See, it continues this way, right? This is the top kino. Top, bottom. So you can plant the top, whatever you're planting, up to a line 10 tefachim above the next one. Okay? This can all be planted. We're talking about a case where the yoina is grain. So you can plant your grain all across the top and along the side until you reach 10 tefachim from above the vineyard below. You see that? Okay? So it says Rabbi Boom Brachia Boy come Rabbi Yuzira. Why is that? According to logic, we just learned this is difficult because up to where should you be allowed to plant the grain? All the way up to the base of the slope, right? All the way up to the base, right? So it says, isn't this teaching us that the slope is like down below? So he said, said it's different. We're afraid if you plant over here, then the grain is going to grow out like this. And it's going to grow directly out over the vineyard. That we don't want to happen. Okay? So hypothetically, we could plant all the way to the bottom, but we're afraid. Right. Where it grows out. Now, vice versa. If the top field is a vineyard, but the bottom field is not a vineyard, so then you can plant the bottom field, and you can plant the slope all the way up to here. In other words, you plant wheat down here. This is talking about where the wheat field is on the bottom. You plant wheat here, and you plant wheat all the way up to here. All the way up to the top of the slope. Again, because the slope is independent from either field on the top or on the bottom. Aren't they getting involved in the roots? Right? Aren't the roots of the grapevines going like this into the slope, and aren't they mingling with the roots of the wheat? So it's aser. Says somehow he knew that the roots of the grapevine only could protrude from the grapevine, from the grapevine, more than 3 tefachim beneath the grapevine. And we said already that we don't care about mixing of roots more than 3 tefachim beneath the surface of the ground. Okay?
The Tanis we learn when you have the roots of grain going within the 4 amos of the vineyard. It's a little below more than 3 tall beneath the ground. Then Arel Mutar, in that case it's okay. So therefore here we don't care. It's not a problem. Okay, new Mishnah. Halacha Gimel. I like that word. You have this is really a trellis work. You have here in picture Kuf Chav Hey. You have something which looks like a large contraption for hanging laundry. You have lines, laundry lines, and multiple laundry lines. What? Yeah, it looks like a sukkah, but but you have multiple laundry lines. Right, it's hollow. Everything is hollow. These are just wires going across. So then you took five vines and you leaned them over what part of the wires, and the expectation that eventually it's going to grow across the whole thing, right? But it's not there yet. Okay? So this case, Hamal is again amiktas api pyrus. You can't plant grain underneath this part over here. Even though this is still empty, you still can't plant underneath here. Sideways. The roots are underneath the circles, yeah.
The circles are where the roots are.
Yeah.
I'm looking the wrong way.
It'll continue to grow.
Right. Right. That's why even now you can't plant on the other part of the Epipyrus. That's right. Right, but it's eventually going to happen. V'mevi, if however you did plant over there, obviously they're low kidesh. It's not osir because there's nothing growing there yet. However, also logical, if it starts growing over there, osir, right? All this is just plain logic. Now we come to a very interesting thing. Let's say you didn't have an Epipyrus. What you did have is a tree, an oak tree which doesn't bear fruit, and you use that as your trellis. You leaned your vine over your oak tree. So then, the same halach applies. You're not allowed to plant on the other part of the oak tree because eventually the vines will climb over there. Unless if you did, but you have it, it doesn't make it usher. However, Hamal given on mitzvahs ilan machal. Let's say you trellised your grapevine over your orange tree. In that case, mutalavi zerel tachas moisar. In that case, you're allowed to plant grain under the rest of your orange tree. Why is that? Because you're not mevatel your orange tree completely to your grapevine. Your tree, which doesn't bear fruit, you are mevatel, and you now have devoted it to be a trellis, and are going to allow the grapevine to continue to creep across the rest of your oak tree, and therefore the issue of Epipyrus comes in. But you do not do that when it comes to your orange tree. Even if you're using part of your orange tree, your intent is not to use your complete orange tree for this task, and therefore therefore I can plant under the rest of my orange tree, because grain only asks, of course, in Kilayim Karen. Let me just make that clear. Grain does not, there's no such thing as kilei tapuzim, right? Kilei tapuchim. The only way you can have kilayim by trees is by grafting, right? So therefore, in this case, you can plant under the rest of the fruit tree. Okay? Mutar lavi zerel tachas mosar. And if the grapevines continue growing out over the rest of your orange tree, yachsirenu. Take those branches down. Ma'isa shoholach Rabbi Yeshua etz Rabbi Shmuel b'Kfar Aziz. My son, Rabbi Shmuel, went to Rabbi Shmuel by Kfar Aziz. He showed him a grapevine which was growing over a part of a fig tree. Can I plant under the rest of it? Armalei said, Mutter, yes, you can, because of the halacha we just cited. Then he took him to a place called Beis Megunya. And he showed them a grapevine which was growing trellis over part of a tree which had no fruit, but which rather grew boards. Vasad beams. It was a lumber tree. Visadan shel shikma. or a sycamore tree, uvo koros harbi, which has a lot of beams growing out of it, a lot of trunks. Amalei, so he said, tachsa korazu aser. Underneath this trunk and this beam, it's aser. Even under the part of this beam where nothing is growing, you're not allowed to plant grain. Even under the part of this beam where no grapevine is growing yet, because your intent is to have the grapevine continue on in that direction. However, tashar mutter, since there are multiple trunks in the sycamore tree, you're allowed to plant grain under the other trunks over which the vine is not yet trellised. Okay? So it's only under the specific vine, which is serving to support, only under the specific trunk, which is serving right now to support the vine, not underneath the other trunks. Okay?
What happens 10 years down the road?
And things change. But right now, it's okay. Azil on Sruk. What is considered to be not fruit-bearing tree which you subordinate to your grapevine? Kosher no oseper, saying the thing which doesn't make fruit. Right? Meir kol ilan srak. Even fruit-bearing trees, you make subordinate to the grapevine and use them as trellises, except for two fruit-bearing trees. What are they? Chutz min hazayis, except for an olive tree, minatena, and a fig tree. Rabbi Yosimer, kosher enkamo notim soros shlemos, any tree which is not, from which you don't normally plant whole orchards, harezi on srak is considered to be a non-fruit bearing tree.
It goes to show you again, you could always count on Mayor being the machmir in almost every case.
The mayor generally machmir, yes. Now, Chizkiah, now here's a fascinating thing, which of course we didn't think of, which we really should have. Chizkiah, my mishlosh of our boy, you must see so. What's the gap between each one of these wires? If the gap is less than 3 tvachim, what does that make those wires? Connected. What does that make?
So no, the whole thing is if it's overshadowing one part of it, and it's overshadowing the whole thing.
And therefore?
So therefore you can't put anything on it.
No!
Just the opposite?
Funkverkehrt.
Why?
If each wire is within 3 tvachim of the other, so this is a roof. So you're allowed to plant anything you want under any part of this. It's as if you put the grapevines over a hothouse and planted something else in the hothouse. Come on. That's pretty neat, isn't it? You're not impressed.
No, it makes sense.
Okay. Okay, so that's then the separation. So you plant anything you want underneath there, underneath any part of it. Okay, now, so therefore, our Mishnah is about where the gap between each wire is between 3 and 4 tvachim. Pachos mishlosha kisasa. If it's if it's less than 3 tvachim, so you can plant under any part of that pipirus, even where the grapevine's already growing, because it's considered to be separate and distinct. Mishlosha v'arba. If it's between 4 tvachim between each wire, machlim, then not only you're not allowed to plant under where the grapevines are growing, but also the rest of the apipyrus. The machlim, you machlim it's across the top. Arba. However, what if these wires are first spaced apart, even wider than 4 tvachim between each wire, then nochasula, the isser comes off. Meaning that if there's more than 4 tvachim between each wire, then underneath up to where the grapevine ends, you're forbidden to plant. But beyond there, you're allowed to plant. Because the vines won't, they may, but they might. But there's a good likelihood that they won't, because there's such a great gap between each wire. So therefore, you're allowed to plant the rest of it. That's right. So our mission is specifically talking about where between each wire there's no less than 3, but no more than 4. Okay. Ad heichon. How far does this prohibition extend out? How broad is this apipyrus? Says Rabbi Yaakov, 80 B'Shem Midlog, said that Ad Amos, 4 amos wide. Rabbi Yaakov, Rabbi B'Shem Midlog, said Ad 6 amos, 6 amos wide. Other Ramana said, at least the case Sarin. I went to this area. The Shamis Rabbi Yeshe Bar Shemi, B'Shem Rabbi Yitzchak Ben Lazer said, Imayu Sham Shtei Papyrus or Mutter. What if they're small? They're 2 papyrus, one next to each other. Two of these structures, one here and one there. So he says under the first one it's also, and the second one it's mutter, which is arbitrary, because he's not going by distances, but just by the fact that it's two separate structures. Okay? Or Rabbi Chena said, V'tani Apoli, we learned the Brisa which argues on this. Because there's a Brisa which says, if they're two next to each other, and it can go from one to the other, it still remains awesome. V'tani Ken Rabbi Shimon Lazar Oimer, we also learned a Brisa like this. Another Brisa like this, Rabbi Shimon Lazar says, people are people. If it goes from one structure to another structure, it's like one self-stream structure. What's if it's, we learned in our Mishnah that what's a question, what's the difference between a non-fruit bearing tree and a fruit bearing tree? Now the Gemara explains what the difference is. A person subordinates Elon Sraka Gabik Fano, a non-fruit bearing tree, to be the trellis, to be the support for its grapevine, and therefore we treat it like an apipyrus. However, a person doesn't allow the rest of his fruit tree to become a support for his grapevine, and therefore we don't regard the rest of it as an apipyrus. Tamotin, we learned over there. Now, it was one of these wild Yerushalmi connections. Wild, out of left field, as usual. Tamotin, we learned out there, over there in the Mishnah on Kalim. Chamosa Tzuros. If you have goat skins, not goat, goat skin. In the old days they didn't have canteens. They had goat skins. Problem is that goat skins have holes in them. Because goats, they're still tar because they can be opened up, so they're not a din keli. Until they're sewn shut. They have to be sewn shut in order to be considered to be a keli. But if they can be tied and untied, they're not going to be a keli because the hole hasn't gone away. Except for the Arabs, because they tie them tightly and they're not taken apart. Right? If it's a temporary knot, they're tar, because the hole is still extant, because it's made to come off and on. Tzor olam tmeos. If it's a permanent knot, then they're makabel tuma, because they're vessels. Rabbi Yossi Omer kol chamos tzurus taros. No matter how it's tied, they're all tar because they're all considered to have holes. Istani, now here comes the interesting part. Istani tani machlif. There are those who learned that Meir said the exact opposite. Meaning that if it's a temporary knot, it's tamei. If it's a permanent knot, it's tar, which makes no sense, and we're going to pick up on that in a minute. Rabbi Yaakov Rabbi Yasa said, no. Bimas Nisan. Just ignore that last girsa, that it's a temporary knot is tamei and a permanent knot is tar, because it makes no sense. Rather learn like it says in the Brisa. Rabbi Yudan said, no. I'll bring you a raya from Kilayim like the alternate girsa. What's the raya? Simona de Kalim ki Kilayim. You can draw a parallel between Kalim, you can learn the sign of Kalim like Kilayim. How so? To locate Ma ben tzar olam l'tzar shah. If not, what's the difference between a tzar olam, between a permanent knot and a temporary knot? Now, what's going on here? So, there's the concept is like this. Oh, I made a mistake. Sorry. Rabbi Yuna is bringing a raya to the girsa of the Brisa. It's Rabbi Yana is going to bring a raya to the other girsa. Okay, let me just do that again. Rabbi Yuna said, Simona de Kalim Kilayim. The simon of Kalim is Kilayim, meaning the raya to the original girsa that Tzor Olam is worse because it's a permanent knot and therefore it's tamei, whereas Tzor Shah, if it's a temporary knot, it's tar. The proof of that is Kilayim. How's the proof of that Kilayim? To locate Mabin Tzor Olam, Mabin Tzor Shah. If you wouldn't be learning from Kilayim, what would be the difference? Meaning, here by Kilayim we're saying that which is subordinated, you allow the trellis to continue over.
That which is not subordinated, you don't allow the trellis to continue over. So we look at what you're willing to be mevatel and what you're not willing to be mevatel. So that which you're mevatel is considered to be permanent. That which you're not mevatel is not considered to be permanent. Again, by us, that which you're willing, the trees which are ilonei schak, or even according to Rameir, ilonei meichel, fruit-bearing trees, except for olive trees and fig-bearing trees, those you're willing to subordinate permanently to your grapevine, right? So we see those already get a din of grapevine. Whereas fruit-bearing trees, you're not willing to subordinate. So therefore, they don't get a din of being the grapevine, and that's why you can plant under the other half of that, plant grain under the other half of that orange tree or the other half of that fig tree. Now, says Rabbi Yudon, Keli must be the same way. A knot which is permanent becomes part and parcel of the Keli. And that's why the Keli now is considered, even though it's not sewn, it's considered to have a permanent container aspect to it, and it's Makabel Tuma. Whereas if it's a Shah, if it's a temporary knot, so then you never fully closed up the knot, and that's why this Keli cannot be Kabel Tuma. Why? Because it's made to potentially have a hole again. So that everything seems to be a parallel. The question is what you're mevatel, what you're making on a permanent basis, and how to make it on a permanent basis. That's what Rabbi Yudon says. Along comes Rabbi Yana and says, no, there's no comparison. You know why? Because there's an extra factor here. There's an extra factor which you're not taking into account by Keli. What's the extra factor? Rabbi Yana, Amrei, Tzor Olam Tzor Chituch. Those which are tied forever, they're done in a fancier way. They're cut with so that I guess they have nice hems to them. So therefore, tying is not sufficient to make it a keli. What does it need besides the tying? Also the proper cut to it, as opposed to Tzor Shah. By a case, it's one which is. By one which is which is only temporarily tied, so there, in that case, people don't cut it. So therefore, the moment it's tied, it's considered to be Gemar Malacha. So therefore, the Gemara is saying like this. The Gemara is saying the Gemara is saying what Rabbi Yana is saying is there's an additional factor which you're not taking into account. You write the alternate girsa which we had in Rameir, that a permanent knot is Torah and a temporary knot is Torah, makes no sense at face value. But throw in the additional factor, then it makes sense. That in a case where you have a permanent knot, you also need to have it cut properly. And if it's not cut properly, it's not considered to be totally finished, and therefore it's not yet metame. A case where there's a temporary knot, they don't cut it so nicely. And therefore, as long as it has the knot, even if it's not cut properly, it's already metame. Okay? Design the stitch in the rest of it, though, not in the place where it's tied. Right? Because the place where it's tied, there are no stitches. The rest of it, somewhere else around it. Okay, so that's the difference. Alright, let's go further. Piskei Oris. Now, Oris, of course, we said several times already, is when you have 5 vines in a row. Let's picture Kuf Chavav, 5 vines in a row near a wall. And the wall makes them into a kerem, even though you don't have the proper form of 2 and 2 and 1 behind. Okay? That's what we said about Oris. Now what about if you have 2 arisim in adjacent to one another? Piskei Oris, Shmonavod. So in order to plant between the 2 arisim, grain, you have to have at least 8 amos, which is picture Kuf Chavav. You see that? Plus a little bit more. 8 plus a little bit more. The Gemara is going to say 8 plus is 8 and a tefach. 8 amos and a tefach. You should know in general there's no any midah chachamim used by a vineyard never has an additional tefach chutzi piskei oris, except here chachamim threw an extra tefach. Elo piskei oris. What is a piskei oris? Oris shachor me'emtzo. You had an oris which was 11 trees long, and now, or more for that matter,
and now one or more are missing in the middle. Some of the trees are missing in the middle. So now there are 5 trees on the east and 5 trees on the west. Between the eastern branch and the western branch, there's 8 amos ve'od. There's only 8 amos between the two. Sorry, you can't plant any grain in the middle. If there's an 8 plus 1 tefach between the two, then no stim lo avodaso. Then you distance 6 tefachim from either of from each one of the last 2 trees, last inner trees. V'zarei you could plant in between the entire area in between. Does everybody get what's happening? Is that clear what's happening with Dr. Spinell?
Does it have to be in that scenario?
That's what I was going to ask. Mr. Zuger, do you understand what's happening? Okay. So if there's 8 amos in a tefach between the last one over here and the last one over here, then you distance of 6 tefachim from each one, and then you can plant the entire area in the middle. Okay? Says the Gemara, we told Karen. There's a funny case of Machlokas Rambam and Rash how to learn it. As you see, the Rash learns a case. Look at the picture of Kuv Chav Zayin. You have the fence is going on an angle, on a corner, right? So you have 2 on one side and 3 on the other side, and that's your 5. According to the Rambam, it's a really funny case. According to the Rambam, you have it's a triangle coming out of one of the walls where the wall makes a turn. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's the Rambam's case. You wouldn't be able to figure this out if you didn't have a picture. So says the Gemara, or the Mishnah, told Karen it's coming out of a corner. They call it, and it ends either like this going to the Rash or like this going to the Rambam. You only have distance of 6 tefachim, and you can plant from the end. Now, according to the Rash, that's Kuf Chav Zayin, from the last tree in either one of the lines. According to the Rambam, even from the top tree in this triangle, right, the tree which crowns the triangle, this is of 6 tefachim and you plant. Okay? Says the Gemara, it says Rabbi Yisrael, he argues, says you have to have more than it, you have to have 4 amos of distance. Hakanim hayotzim min oris. What if you have, the oris is of course a wall, right? What if the oris has the wall has like branches coming out of it, and the grapevine might start climbing on those branches, kind of like a combination of pure oris, right? Now in that wall, they're like branches coming out. So says the Gemara, Hakanim hayotzim min oris chasalein leposkon. If you don't want to cut those branches down from the wall, right, those branches which are shooting out of the wall, then connect on, if you just don't want to cut them down, connect on mutter. Then you can plant grain underneath those outcroppings from the wall. However, if you made them intentionally as a trellis, that eventually the grapevines will creep up those outcroppings, then it's also to plant grain underneath them, obviously. Let's say we have a case where actually there is a grapevine coming out over the wall and shooting out over to the other side. Okay, you get the scenario? One of the vines is shooting out over the wall to the other side. So now to plant the royim also kilim to tell Slibo. You see it as if a plumb line is hanging from it, and connect the osir directly underneath the branches osir. The chaim bedalis, and so too by the api pure. Bedalis and api pure, the same thing. Where if you had a branch coming out, let's say over here, in the case of api pure, if you had a branch coming out all the way over here, then you'd put a plumb line down from here, and directly opposite the plumb line would be osir. Okay, beyond api pure. Okay, also, if you bring a branch, you stretch a branch from vineyard vine to vine, you're not allowed to plant under that branch. What if you supported that branch with rope or with rubber? underneath tachas asipuk motor. So then there's a very interesting halacha, very big, interesting difference. This is my grapevine. I put a support directly underneath it. I want to plant grain underneath here. It depends what the support is for. If the support is, if this is not in order to support the grapevine, but is actually made as a mechitza, so then I can plant here grain underneath. If the support, however, is made to actually support the grapevine, so then I'm not allowed to plant underneath. Again, because the concept of bittul, right? If this is made, right, by the fruit tree, if this is made to support the grapevine, it's bottled to the grapevine, and then underneath here it's also. If it's looking for behind the mechitza.
Where?
Behind the mechitza. Go around the garden.
Right.
If however this is made in fact to be a mechitza, so then that works as a separate chatzitza between. Okay, that's a valid chatzitza, and then you can plant grain directly underneath here. That's a big loophole, yeah. But it's not always. It's very, very hard to utilize because it means there's no apifior there and there's no oris. It's just a single branch coming out of the tree. Right, a single branch. Okay. As for Leisa da Pliga Rabbi Zira, our mission said there's only one case in all of Kilayim where it's more than 8 amos, and it's 8 amos and a tefach. Doesn't it argue Rabbi Zira? The Rabbi Zira Amar Shmona Chutzi Mokum Karsin. Rabbi Zira says that when you have two rows of grapevines and you plant underneath them, you need 8 amos plus the place where you're planting the cabbages or whatever's in between. So you see that there you also need 8 amos vod. You need the 8 amos, 4 amos of distance on either side of the cabbages and the width of the cabbages. So there it's also a little bit more than 8 amos. Says the more pasar la. This is all part of the Gash, I'm sorry. Pasar shmona amos koshu. There it's 8 amos, a little bit more for the place where the cabbage is growing in the middle. Why don't you mention that case as well? Says Marvelotis Borkahi. No. Don't you know? Didn't you think of that which we know? The Omer Rabbi Yochanan said, Call me the Shomer Chachami Vo Tefach. Where Chachami used the word Vo like our mission means exactly a Tefach. Vahi Ribchat Tzivchar. There, it's much more than a Tefach. Because it's the 8 amos, which are the 4 amos each between the vines, and then the thickness of the row in the middle, which could be a lot more than a single tefach. So that's not comparable to our case. Our mission is the only case where it's 8 amos and a tefach. In that case of Rabbi Zira, it's 8 amos and a lot more because it's the width of whatever is being planted in the middle. Okay? Vayhin riba tzivchar. There it's much more. Lefum kein lotnisa. That's not. It's not that case. Not mentioned. Rabbi Yonah asked, Lomali non omrin. Why is it that anon omrin that we are saying? There's no other case of va'od except for piskei. What are you talking about? There's no other place in Shots where it says va'od. What? How can this be? This is preposterous. I'll give you a Mishnah right off the bat. It says about menachos that aseres kabin Yerushalmi, a certain menachos are brought as 10 kabin Yerushalmi, shein shisha soim, which are 6 tenths, v'adayon, and v'od. Iduyon means a little bit more. So there the word v'od is used. How can you say we never find v'od in all of Shas? Here I found a case for you. It says the more Tamal Lamidos, there it's a volume. Kan Lamos, here it's a distance. We never find by distances, only by volumes. Okay, I know we're splitting hairs, but that's what Gemara is all about, right? Vatina, what about a case of Rabbi Yosef Mishulam Omer, V'od kav l'meya soya soa shtus l'medama. It says also you need a little bit more over a kav, an extra 6 to be precise, in order to take away the concept of meduma, in order that you shouldn't have truma being, in order to make truma batel, right, which is 1 in 100 plus a little bit more, plus a v'od. So there we see also word v'od. Again, Tamalamidos kan lamas. It's about volume, not about distance. But what about the following case? Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava Hakina v'Karpa Shishivim v'Shirayim Hashim v'Shirayim Eruvin. You're not allowed to have within an Eruv an area which is 70 and a remainder on 70 by a remainder of plants, of a garden, or of a wild, uncultivated area. That's called, what's that called? Does anybody remember? Well, here it says, a karpaf. Right now it's a karpaf, a wild area which is not suitable for human habitation within an Eruv, or more than 70 2/3 amos. By 70 2/3 amos cancels the whole Eruv. So we have this Shiloh all the time. It's very prevalent Shiloh. For instance, here in the Chicago Eruv, in all the Chicago Eruvin, there's a Shiloh of the water, because the Chicago Canal, the north branch of the Chicago River, is in the Eruv. So it should be a karpa because it's not suitable for human habitation. So we paskin that if the water is roy to drink, or at least to use for laundry, so it can be included in the Eruv, because then it's tantamount to human habitation. And you should know that this water, even though it's once very polluted, so there was a study done recently on it, and now it's not so gefährlich if you drink it anymore. If a child drinks it, he gets sick, but an adult will drink it, nothing will happen to him. And it certainly can be used for washing clothes. So that's the heter to use it as part of the Eruv. So be that as it may, it's 70 2/3, 70 v'od, right? Shirayim. Shmuel Amar, Bishnei Shlishei Amos Shanu. Shmuel says, yes, it's true. That's a little bit more. There's a v'od over there, but there it's much more than a tefach. There it's 2/3 of an amma. How many tefachim are 2/3 of an amma? I'll give you a hint. An amma is 6 tefachim. It's 4, so it's much more. There's never more. Here it's 1 tefach, there it's 4, so there's a big difference. We haven't done 2 blot yet, have we? We're close to 2 blot?
2 more lines.
No, we started on Amud Aleph, didn't we? Then we started on Chav Tessim now?
So we just got to do
just the top of we started over there at the Mishnah? Okay, so there's a few more lines. Truth is, I wanted to finish the parak today, but I don't know if we'll be able to do that. Says the Gemara, we'll leave it for tomorrow. Now, this is the statement, not a kasha. It doesn't make a difference whether the fence came first and then the 11 trees came. Or first you planted 11 trees, and I skipped. I didn't read that right. No, I didn't read it right. Well, let me read it over again anyway. And then the one in the middle got taken away. There's an oris and there's piskei oris. So it doesn't make a difference, no matter how the order occurred. And even if you started with 10, or if you started with 11 and then one got uprooted in the middle, like you asked before, it makes no difference. What happens if the fence is gone? There's no oris to talk about. It's not a vineyard anymore. Because we said the whole concept of vineyards is 2 rows. Here it's a special chumrah that since there's a fence, so even 1 row. You take away the fence, there's no oris and no piskei oris, nothing to talk about. Rabbi Avdumi Bar Achud Rabbi Yesi Boy said, here boy is a statement. Chazer benoya, if you rebuild the fence, atomar, of course you say chazer oris limkoimo. The oris goes back to its place. To a logical. With the kavod son, so too chazer piskei oris l'orim, so to the gap in the middle also is restored as well. Rabbi Yossi b'shem Rabbi Yochanan said, Ma'aseh shesor, if there's a Ma'aseh shesor Rabbi Yochanan, that shesor for Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, ben Nignar. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri burnt Kilei HaKerem in Neginar. In the city of Niger. Masoraf, what did he burn? Piskei Ori Soraf. He burnt, you know what, this is a long thing. No, it's not so long. It is, no, it's not so long. We'll do it. We're not going to finish it, man. We'll just go 5 more lines. Masor Piskei Ori Soraf. Rabbi Chia b'shem Rabbi Yochanan said, Ma'aseh shesoraf Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri ben Naginar. Masaraf, he didn't burn piskei oris. In other words, according to the first opinion, he burned that which grew in an area this wide, which an area between 2 arisim, which wasn't the proper gap. Rabbi Chiv Shem Yod said, Ma'aser Soraf, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri ben Akinar, Ma'at Soraf ben Oris Legader Soraf. He burnt that which grew between the vines and the wall. And according to Rabbi Yochanan, Piskei Oris is only Nissa de Rabbanan. And you wouldn't burn the Kili HaKerim which grew there. The Chatchila, you shouldn't plant there. But the Yevet, if you did plant there, so it's okay. However, according to the first opinion, which is Rabbi Yossi named Rabbi Yochanan, as opposed to Rabbi Chiv named Rabbi Yochanan, no, even if you plant here and the gap is not wide enough, that's mamish kilayim, and you got to burn it if it grows there. Okay. Rabbi Yossi said, "Kashi said kami Rabbi Yochanan Yaakov Baracha." That's Rabbi Yaakov Baracha. Nicha Piskei Oris Sarf. According to the opinion that the story is about Piskei Oris, then that's what he burned. Then there's the Chiddush in telling me the Maisa. Because Chachamim argue, and they hold Piskei Oris is not Mamish Kilayim, you don't have to burn it. So along came Rabbi Yochanan and said, you should know that Rabbi Yochanan knew you argued with Chachamim, and he burned Piskei Oris. Then the discussion makes sense. However, Ben Oritz the Gader Soraf. But if the Meister of Yochanan ben Nuri is talking about between the Oritz, the vines, and the fence, do Chachamim argue on that? Everybody agrees that that's Mamish Kilayim. So what's this Meister? This Meister not telling me anything I didn't know. Rabbi Yochanan is just following Chachamim. What's the Chachmah? Says Mar, no. The Lo Shmiya, you didn't hear. Rabbi Yaakov Baracha. Rabbi Yaakov Baracha said, Yispag Rabbi Yochanan Rishim and Lakish Arisatzmo Mau. Even by Oris itself, it's Takim Machlokes. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Osir Mekadesh. Rabbi Yochanan says that between the Oris and the fence, it's Osir and it's Mekadesh, and you got to burn it. Rabbi Shimon Lakish Amar Osir Veina Mekadesh. Shimon Lakish says that even when it grows between the vines and the fence, it's not Osir Midaraisa, and you don't have to burn it. So therefore, Rabbi Yochanan is telling us a chiddush that he held that even that which grows between the oritz and the fence is definitely climb, and you definitely have to burn it like Rabbi Yochanan and not like Reish Lakish. We'll stop here for tonight.